All right, we are on update 37. We have our big update for Caliban, making him far more useful than he was before. Everyone's getting to play with him now since they're getting a free one for a couple of weeks. And it's nice to have a summoner style Warframe that actually does the summoning thing really well. You can bring your whole gang along with you without having to actually have friends. But who needs Caliban when you have other Warframes that have been around for a long time that can do the same sort of thing that he does? So this is not a build that I figured out. I don't even know how you would think to make all of this happen and put all of this together. I'll do my best to explain everything that's happening here because there is definitely a lot going on. It's pretty wild, so hang on tight. The main thing that we're utilizing on this is desiccation for the Subsume ability, and we're using this in order to get Swarm Kavats, which is normally a part of Inaros' kit. Utilizing that plus Desiccation's Curse allows us to start summoning Swarm Kavats, and once you have at least one, if they start killing enemies, they will create more Swarm Kavats for you, so you don't have to be constantly utilizing Desiccation with finishers to summon cats, which is cool and helps make this build run much more fluidly. It's important to note that you need to have Desiccation on your third ability, even though it would be very nice to have a shield for more survivability, and Discharge is completely useless on this build. We need to have it on the third because the Swarm Kavat portion of Inaros' kit, for somehow it checks your fourth ability, and if it detects anything there like Desiccation, it overwrites the normal number of Swarm Kavats that you would have. For whatever reason, this still thinks that your fourth ability would technically be part of Inaros, and it allows you to have the normal 3 Swarm Kavats that you could get from his Scarab Swarm ability. So if you overwrite Discharge with Desiccation, you would only be able to have 2 Kavats active because of the augment. If you do it like this, you have the base 3 plus 2, so you can have 5 active, which is way better. This is a triple augment build, which is pretty ridiculous to see for really any Warframe. The most important one really is Shocking Speed, but Shock Trooper is super useful as well. Shocking Speed adds an aura around anyone that is affected by the speed ability that deals electric damage, and Shock Trooper just gives you additional damage on top of that. So Shocking Speed will affect other allies because it's just how speed works. You're able to affect allies with it. It also means that you can affect companions and summons. So Shocking Speed will apply to Kavats and give them an aura around them, and then Shock Trooper will also apply to the Kavats and give them additional damage. The damage that they deal actually doesn't end up being electric damage. For whatever reason, when this is applied to the Swarm Kavats, it helps them to spread their normal damage type, which is their corrosive damage. That ends up being pretty high because it gets buffed by Shock Trooper. I'm assuming because both of these are electric damage, so it just is a part of corrosive damage and just gets added directly to that. And adding Shock Trooper massively boosts the amount of damage that the Kavats are able to do, with Shocking Speed allowing them to spread the effect that they have to lots of enemies at the same time. Any enemies that are damaged by a Swarm Kavat's damage will have the desiccation effect applied to them, along with having the corrosive damage applied to them. So this acts as both a good way to lock down a large group of enemies by essentially stunning them with more desiccation effects and armor stripping everybody at the same time because of corrosive damage. So because we're doing that, that does mean that you need to have 2 emerald shards for increasing corrosive stacks, otherwise you will not get complete armor stripping. It's not exactly a necessary thing to completely remove their armor, but it makes it so much better if you're able to do that. Everything else that we're doing here is really just focusing on getting some additional strength and getting as much range as possible, so that way the aura that is applied to all of our Kavats is as big as possible so they can hit as many enemies as possible. For survivability, you can go with Rolling Guard or Catalyzing Shields. It's kind of just dependent on what you prefer to do. Usually, you're not able to quite get enough shields from utilizing auger mods and brief respite to completely boost your shields up to full when using catalyzing shields. I've tried doing this a few different ways, even with coaction drift. If you do it, you need to have additional auger mods on your secondary. I prefer just using rolling guard. You usually have enough time with that to spam some abilities in order to get your shields back up, and then you have a little bit more shield gating duration by utilizing your full shield capacity. Plus, if you're doing well enough with this build, sending your Kavats all over the place to stun enemies and melt their armor away, you won't be getting shot too much, save for the occasional eximus enemy that pops up like usual. So, pretty much everything here that you see is going to be necessary. The triple augment is absolutely necessary. You're going to want as much range as possible, so overextended, auger reach. If you want to worry less about your shields, then you could always just swap this for normal stretch for even more range, but you really don't have anything to lean on for survivability outside of boosting your shields with auger mods and your aura mods, so I would definitely suggest keeping as many auger mods on here as possible, and if you really feel like your survivability is struggling, of course you can grab a secondary that you have room to slot in the secondary auger mods onto, and then you can lean into catalyzing shields with enough of energy recovery to shields. You can just spam speed or just tap it once and it will completely restore your shields. And this is an ability you can always activate and reactivate. It does not have any animation for it whatsoever, so it never stops you from doing anything. You can just activate speed repeatedly to build up shields, or again, if you have enough energy recovery or energy conversion, you can just tap it once and you're good to go. So might as well just jump in and show this in action because it sounds ridiculous and you're not really going to be able to truly appreciate the insanity of this until you see it firsthand. So we're just going to go after some good old Steel Pass Grineer, melt all of their armor away, and I need an actual good weapon for this before I be stupid. You're going to want something that's really good for taking out enemies with finishers because you need to use finishers on enemies in order to get your first Kavat to appear when you're utilizing Desiccation.
Scans show Grineer are harvesting Kuba nearby. Set off the alarms to draw them out, then steal their Kuba catalysts. Predictable. As expected, Grineer have shut down the environmental systems, sending modified life support capsules. Use these to...
Let's see if we can get one of these guys taken down and summon a Kavat. Yes, we can. Activate our 2 abilities, and... well, that's tragic. Let's try that one more time, shall we? Like I said, survivability is a bit questionable, but... there we go. Now everybody's locked down and can't really do anything. It's a lot harder for them to shoot me. You have your own aura on you that you can utilize to stun enemies that aren't stunned by just running into them. Your Kavats are going to come along and they're going to start just dumpstering everything for you. You do not have to do anything. This build is really best suited for armored enemies, not so much against Corpus for obvious reasons, but this is strong enough with the Kavats when they come along to just start dealing huge damage and melting away enemy armor that you really don't need to do anything. All you have to do is keep your 1 and 2 active at all times to keep maximum damage on your Kavats. If you're doing things right, you're not even going to be getting hit by enemies in the first place. If you do, in this case, since I have Rolling Guard, you can use that to get a couple seconds to build your shields back up. Gonna get my cats to come over here. There's a whole bunch of dudes in here that need to die. There we go. Eximus are the only real threat, but as soon as you knock down their overguard, they're gonna die like the rest of them. That's a good old Tord for some... a little bit of insurance. Don't really need it though. It's mostly just gonna be for taking out the Eximus whenever they show up. Your Kavats do a decent enough job of following you when you're in a mission, so you can pretty much just run into whatever group of enemies you want to die, and your Kavats will follow along behind you and take them out. I'm just going to melt the Overguard on that guy and let the Kavats do the rest. I'm probably using Shock Trooper more than I actually need to. I know it has its own duration that gets applied as a buff, and it's a lot longer than the duration for speed is, but it's just an easy way to make sure it's always up and active. This is damn near... Actually, if you had the right tile set, if you could just stand in one spot, this really could be an AFK Warframe build, because these Kavats will stun enemies for you and take them down for you. Really, the only thing you have to worry about is Eximus. That's about the only thing that's stopping it from really being like an actual AFK build where you can just sit in a room and let your abilities do everything for you. The abilities just don't do enough damage to Overguard to stop them from Eximus from killing you before they die. And that's what I get for not paying attention to my rolling guard. Negative efficiency is actually a decent thing to have on a build like this because it gives you a good amount of energy conversion to shields for really all of your abilities. So even though discharge really isn't necessary for this build and doesn't do much, with something like this when you're using full shields instead of catalyzing shields, you can build up your shields really easily by using that just as a quick activation to get some more survivability. It's that quick little slip up at the beginning was a good demonstration of the fact that this build is a serious glass cannon. It's really unfortunate that you can't keep Volt's shield as an ability, but again, if you replace discharge with your desiccation, then it's going to get rid of the additional Kavats that you get, and only having 2 is going to severely decrease the amount of damage that this build puts out. So I just don't see it as being a worthwhile thing for that little bit of survivability, especially when you have options for more survivability through auger mods, through catalyzing shields. I know shield gating can be kind of annoying, and it's relied upon probably a bit too much on some designs, but it's kind of the best that we have in this case for this build. So I haven't ever really actually sat back to see how long it takes for the Kavats to kill an Acolyte, but they seem to be doing just fine. I haven't shot him yet. He's just steadily melting away because of corrosive damage. There we go. Wasn't at all necessary to let him die from the Kavats, but I was curious. I already know that everything else is going to die to the Kavats when they show up, so why not see how much damage it can actually put out? You just gotta pay a little bit of attention to what you're doing. Mostly pay attention to your shields. Make sure that you're not going long lengths of time without reactivating your 1 and your 2, so your Kavats are able to spread their damage around all over the place. And you're good to go. If you're not used to doing shield gating stuff, it can take a little bit of time to get used to how it feels to have to be using abilities to keep yourself alive like that. It's not too bad. It's just something that gets relied upon a lot for a lot of builds out there that don't have good survivability in the first place, so you might as well get used to it. You're probably going to end up using it a decent amount if you get into really late game stuff, because there's a lot of Warframes that just don't have good survivability built into their kits. Volt usually isn't too bad, but we can't rely on the usual survivability aspects of Volt on this particular build to keep him alive. I'll just show this off real quick too. This is by no means like a perfectly optimized build on the Fragger Prime for getting finishers, but it's good enough. I mean, it was one-shotting a basic Grineer Lancer and that's all you really need to get the ball rolling. You just need to kill one. So actually, you don't even necessarily have to have a weapon dedicated purely to finishers, but since you're so fragile with this build, it's probably for the best to just get it done really quickly at the start, and then you don't have to worry about it. So doesn't have to be on the Fragger Prime, but hammers and rapiers are the best weapons for finisher damage. So just keep that in mind if you're trying to set this up. Go back in here one more time. This is a pretty wild build. It's mostly going to be effective against Grineer because of the corrosive and the armor stripping. You're probably not going to see it be super useful against Corpus without armor or against Infested with not much to deal with there. They're not really super vulnerable to corrosive damage, but in the area where this is useful against Grineer, which is a decent amount of content in the game, it's pretty silly. You just bring the cats, become crazy Volt Cat Lady, and watch everything die around you.